The Dream That Led to Victory, from Treasury of American Indian Tales. Singing Fire, the young Apache brave, rode swiftly through the hills toward the village of his people. He had been hunting, and now was returning to his tepee to join his family in a hearty evening meal. His hunger made him urge his pony to an even faster pace. Soon he could see the smoke of the fires in the village. It was only a few moments later that Singing Fire brought his pony to a quick stop on the very edge of the village. To ride his horse through the village this evening would have been unkind. The summer had been very dry, and his pony's hooves would have raised much dust that would settle in the cooking pots. Walking through the village, the young brave waved and called to his friends. He laughed when they joked with him about his empty hands. He had been unable to find any game that he felt was worth bringing to the village. Soon he reached his father's tepee, and was welcomed warmly by the family. When supper was finished, Singing Fire went to talk with his friend, Many Painted Ponies. The two braves had always been together since they were very young and just learned to walk. Now, whenever they had time, they would sit and talk about their future together as great leaders of the Apache tribe. He found his friend working at making new arrow tips. "Hello, my good friend," Many Painted Ponies, "and how are you this fine evening?" "My stomach is full and my heart is happy," Singing Fire. "Could a brave ask much more of life? I have been very fortunate in having such a fine father and mother who have made my life such a pleasure. As I saw you ride in from the hunt, I noticed you carried no game. Was there no game where you rode? Usually you do not return empty-handed." "Today was bad for the hunt. The largest game knew that I was hunting and ran for cover, and I was not as quick as they to find the hiding places." The two young men laughed, and then spent some time talking until darkness came. Each young man went back to his tepee for a well-earned sleep. The next day there was great excitement in the village. As young Singing Fire stepped from his tepee, he saw that people were gathering in the center of the village to hear a tall Apache warrior who was talking loudly and rapidly to the chief of the village. As Singing Fire drew near, he was able to catch some of the words spoken by the warrior. "It is true, my chief. The Comanches have been seen in our land. If we are not careful, they will raid our pony herds and make off with many of our best mounts. I have seen them to the east, and they skulk like the lowly wolf in the night." The great chief listened quietly until the young warrior had finished. Then he motioned to the older men of the tribe to gather in his tepee. When they were all inside, Singing Fire, Many Painted Ponies, and the other young braves stood outside waiting impatiently for what the elders of the tribe would decide. They could hear the young brave who had first reported to the chief repeating his story for those who had come late. He said that, while trailing some ponies that had strayed from the herd, he had come upon the coals of a recent fire. Because the marks in the sand were not Apache, he had followed the tracks made when the group broke camp. Traveling at a rapid pace, he had soon come upon the band of Comanches in the small gully. After watching them for a short while, the brave had mounted his pony and ridden as fast as he could to the village to tell the chief of this threat to their property and peace within such a short distance of their camp. Finally, the chief came out from his tepee and spoke to the young warriors. "The Comanches have entered our hunting grounds. Not only have they broken the law, but they dare to ride within a short distance of our camp. We will gather a war party and go in search of these thieves of the night. We will give them a sound lesson by whipping those wild dogs so badly that they will return to their own land with their tails between their legs, if there are any left to return when we have met them upon the field of battle." With low shouts of agreement, everyone ran to prepare for the warpath. Singing Fire and Many Painted Ponies returned to check their weapons, and when preparations were completed, returned to where the chief sat astride a great white horse. When everyone had assembled, the party left camp in search of the evading Comanches. For several days the party searched, but no sign was found, other than the old fire, that anyone had been in the vicinity. At last the chief turned to his men and said, "They have seen our strength, and afraid have returned to their own land. They respect the might and frightening ability of the Apaches. Come, we will return to our village." The party started for home, but as Singing Fire and Many Painted Ponies went along, Singing Fire was quiet. "What is it, my friend, Singing Fire? You are so quiet." "I was just thinking, my friend, that the Comanches are not known as cowards. They surely would not turn from a fight. I do not believe that they have left our land. But, Singing Fire, for 3 days we have searched the land and no sign of them do we see. Certainly the earth did not open up and swallow them." "That is just the point, my friend. What has happened to the party?" "The brave reported seeing them, and took us to where they had their fire. The tracks led away but suddenly stopped, and we have nothing to indicate that they returned to their own lands across the great river. I just am not satisfied that they have left." Nothing more was said for the remainder of the trip back to the village, and that evening after supper, Singing Fire went to sleep thinking about the hunt for the Comanches. As he slept, he dreamed that there were Comanche warriors mounted upon fast horses, and they all seemed to be riding towards a solid wall. Singing Fire suddenly awoke recalling seeing that wall before. About a day's ride from their village was a small valley, which they called the Valley of the Snake because it twisted and turned between the mountains. As the thundering riders neared the wall, it seemed to open up, and they had disappeared within. Then the walls closed again, and there was silence. Singing Fire leapt from his bed and rushed to his father's side. "My father, I must speak to our chief. It is of great importance that I see him now." "But it is late, my son, and certainly what you have to say can wait until tomorrow." "No, father, I must speak to him now." With that, Singing Fire left his tepee and soon was standing before the tepee of the great chief. He made his presence known and was invited into the tepee. The chief invited him to sit and asked, "What brings you to my tepee so late, young Singing Fire?" "Tonight, O great chief, in a dream I was drawn to the painted hill which stands guard over our village. Here I stood troubled in heart and mind because of what had been reported to our tribe." Then Singing Fire proceeded to tell in complete detail of the dream he had had. When he finished, he waited for the chief to speak. "What importance do you attach to this dream you have had, young Singing Fire?" "I do not know, great chief, but I would like your permission to take many painted ponies and ride to this place I have seen in the dream. I would like to see what can be found there, and I will return to my village." The Indians placed a great deal of faith in dreams, and so the chief gave his permission, and early the next morning, many painted ponies and Singing Fire set out for the valley that Singing Fire had seen not only in his dream, but many times on his hunting trips. They traveled all day, and when the sun was setting in the west, they found themselves but a short distance from the entrance to the valley. They camped for the night, not lighting a fire in case there should be any unfriendly Indians in the vicinity. As dawn drew near, two young men crawled to the mountainous heights overlooking the twisting valley. There they lay and watched the valley below. For almost an hour they sat until finally about noontime a small band of warriors could be seen riding into the valley. They rode straight up the middle of the valley, twisting and turning as the valley turned, but finally about midway up the valley they swung sharply to the left and seemed to disappear into the very walls surrounding the valley. "Come," said Singing Fire, "we must investigate this strange occurrence." It took them most of the afternoon to reach a vantage point overlooking where the warriors had disappeared. Crawling carefully to the very edge, the two young braves looked carefully over the edge. Below them lay a fantastic sight. A tremendous Comanche encampment was being formed in a small box canyon. The entrance to the box canyon was a mere crack in the wall, which was just about wide enough for one horse and rider to enter at one time. Now Singing Fire could see why a rider going through the valley would not see the opening, for it was actually hidden from view by a turn in the trail. If one were not looking for it, one would not find it except by accident. This is why we have not seen the Comanches except for that one small party. Under cover of night or early dawn, they have been entering our land in small parties, gathering here until their force is large enough to make war on our people. Singing Fire tapped his friend upon the shoulder, motioning him away from the edge. "Many painted ponies, one of us must ride for all he is worth to reach our village and tell of this plan to our people. You must tell the chief to gather the Apaches together, and we can trap the scheming Comanches in their own camp." Many painted ponies rose to leave. "Be careful, my friend, for if they should suspect that you are here, your scalp will soon hang from their medicine lodge, and they will break from their camp, fearing the trap we will set for them. Now I will ride for our village, and may your prayers go with me." With that, Many Painted Ponies left, and mounting his pony, he rode off towards home. Singing Fire kept careful watch for the next day and night, and when dawn approached, he saw the dust of many horses approaching. Riding forth to meet his people, a plan formed in his mind. In council with the chiefs a short time later, the plan was outlined. The best marksmen of the Apaches were placed around the box canyon on the walls overlooking the unsuspecting camp of the Comanches. Other warriors would ride into the valley to stand guard at the only entrance or exit to the canyon to make sure none escaped. Soon it was all in readiness. The signal was given. Like an attacking horde of eagles, the Apache began firing down upon the Comanche encampment. The battle was long and bloody. In confusion, the Comanches mounted their ponies and headed for the exit. Here they were met with a hail of arrows which drove them back into the canyon. When the Comanche forces were thoroughly disorganized, the chief signaled the Apaches to charge through the entrance, and soon the two tribes were locked in hand-to-hand combat. The victory was complete, and soon the last of the Comanches had fallen before the knives and war clubs of the attacking Apaches. In triumph, the tribe returned to the village where great celebrations marked the next few days and nights. The hero of the affair was praised before the council, and Singing Fire was honored for his part in the great victory.